Welcome to the Restricted Handling Podcast. Let's dig in. Here's what's been going on in Russia in the last 24 hours. First, Moscow's negotiating posture. Earlier this week, we talked about Sergei Lavrov leaning hard into the Istanbul draft framework and framing the U.S. as the obstacle to peace. Now, over February 9th through the 11th, Lavrov went on a 3-interview run. TV Bricks, NTV, and a younger audience RuTube channel. And the message tightened even further. He didn't just reference old draft language, he flat-out reiterated Russia's demand that Ukraine cede all of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson, including territory Russian forces don't even control. And he revived the 2021 NATO demands, no further expansion and rollback of deployments in post-1997 member states. So this isn't rhetorical shading. It's a restatement of maximalist conditions as trilateral talks are being floated for February 17th and 18th in Miami. Kyiv has accepted the U.S. proposal. Moscow hasn't confirmed and appears to prefer Abu Dhabi. Venue politics aside, the tone from the Kremlin is not, let's split the difference. It's, these are the terms. On the Ukrainian side, there's a subtle but important clarification compared to what we mentioned yesterday about possible February 24th announcements. President Zelensky has now publicly stated elections will only happen after a ceasefire and formal security guarantees. No ceasefire, no ballot boxes. That shuts down speculation that a political process is about to leapfrog battlefield realities. Another piece that's moved from background to foreground: the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Energoatom's chief, Pavlo Kovtoniuk, warned this week that Russia lacks compatible spare parts and control systems to safely restart the plant. Moscow has signaled interest in bringing at least one reactor back online by 2027. Kyiv says that would be dangerous, especially after the Kakhovka Dam destruction reduced cooling water availability. If you've been watching this war long enough, you know nuclear infrastructure isn't just about electrons, it's about leverage. Now let's talk about the strike campaign. Overnight, February 11th into the 12th, Russia launched 24 ballistic missiles, Iskander-M and S-300 variants, and 219 drones, about 150 of them Shahed type. That's a large package. Kyiv, Kharkiv, Dnipro, Odessa, all targeted. Ukrainian air defenses say they intercepted 15 ballistic missiles and 197 drones, but impacts were recorded in 13 locations. Energy infrastructure was hit again. Residential buildings damaged, injuries reported, including children. This builds on the winter pressure pattern we discussed previously: energy, rail, civilian stress points. But the scale of this salvo is notable. And one more detail. On February 11th, 2 Kinzhal missiles were reportedly intercepted en route to Lviv. That's western Ukraine, roughly 600 kilometers from Russia. When hypersonics show up that deep, that's strategic signaling. Ukraine responded inside Russia. On the night of February 10th into the 11th, Ukrainian forces struck the Volgograd oil refinery. Fires were acknowledged by regional officials. In the same region, near Kotluban, a Ministry of Defense facility caught fire after what Russia described as falling debris. Ukrainian monitoring channels claim it was a GRAU ammunition warehouse. In Tambov region, there were also fires near the Progress plant, which produces aviation and missile control systems. So while Moscow is escalating winter infrastructure strikes, Kyiv is pushing into Russia's industrial and logistical backbone. Refining capacity, ammunition storage, defense electronics. Now here's where it gets almost absurd. Roskomnadzor has started throttling Telegram nationwide, not fully blocking it, but slowing it, degrading performance. Yesterday, we touched on digital pressure broadly. Now it's concrete. Telegram is used by tens of millions of Russians. It's how governors issue alerts, it's how pro-war bloggers operate, and, critically, it's how some Russian military units coordinate. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov tried to dismiss the idea that frontline communications rely on messaging apps. Pro-war channels immediately pushed back, saying Telegram is effectively the only coordination channel for certain air defense and drone units. Imagine you're running air defense in 2026 and your own communications regulator decides to stress test your chat app mid-conflict. It feels less digital sovereignty and more bureaucratic own goal. At the same time, President Vladimir Putin signed a decree on February 11th, placing Rosgvardia under the direct authority of the General Staff. That centralizes control under Chief of the General Staff, Valery Gerasimov. Rosgvardia was originally created as a kind of regime stability force, internal control, riot suppression, coup-proofing after the 2016 reforms. Bringing it closer into the formal military chain of command now is significant. Post-Wagner mutiny, internal loyalty architecture matters. Inside Russia, the economic data continues to show strain beneath the surface. The central bank's business climate index dropped to 0.2 in February, hovering just above contraction. GDP growth slowed to 1% in 2025. Around 5.5 million workers were partially employed in the third quarter, the highest since 2015. Official unemployment remains low, but partial employment and unpaid leave are rising. War spending props up certain sectors while others flatten out. Now zoom out to the South Caucasus, because this is where the geopolitical chessboard is quietly shifting. Vice President J.D. Vance completed a 2-day visit to Armenia and Azerbaijan, first sitting U.S. Vice President to make that swing. In Yerevan, Vance signed a nuclear technology cooperation framework with Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. Armenia is exploring replacing its Soviet-era reactor and is reviewing proposals from U.S., Russian, Chinese, French, and South Korean firms. In Baku, Vance signed a strategic partnership agreement with President Ilham Aliyev, defense cooperation, AI collaboration, maritime security assistance. And at the center of this is the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, TRIP, a proposed 26-mile corridor linking Azerbaijan to its Nakhchivan exclave via Armenian territory. U.S.-built, U.S.-operated. That corridor bypasses Russia and Iran. For decades, Moscow treated the South Caucasus like inherited real estate from the USSR era. Now Washington is drafting infrastructure blueprints in the neighborhood, while Russia is preoccupied in Ukraine. Aliyev and Pashinyan jointly received the Zayed Award in Abu Dhabi on February 4th. Cargo shipments are already moving. Russian grain transiting Azerbaijan to Armenia, Azerbaijani petroleum products flowing the other way. Kazakhstan is also expanding the Trans-Caspian route. About 4.5 million tons of cargo moved in 2024, with a target of 10 million by 2027. Connectivity equals leverage, and leverage is shifting. On the alliance side, NATO members have committed more than $4.5 billion to the prioritized Ukraine requirements list. The UK pledged £150 million this week. A Czech-led ammunition initiative aiming for €5 billion has secured €1.4 billion so far. So where are we? Diplomacy is active but rigid. Russia is reiterating maximalist demands. Strike volumes remain high. Ukraine is hitting back inside Russian territory. The U.S. is expanding influence in a region Moscow once assumed was permanently in its orbit. This isn't a static conflict. It's layered. Military pressure, nuclear leverage, infrastructure corridors, internal control measures, economic strain, all moving at once. Thanks for listening and being part of the RH community. Please take a moment to leave a 5-star review. If you want to see some changes, email us at info@restrictedhandling.com. We also publish a daily written intel brief on Substack, where you'll find even deeper coverage of Russia and China, along with insights on Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK.